We're talking robocalls. We're talking spam texts. I guarantee you my phone's going off right now with the robocall. Everybody gets them. What are we covering here today?
Yeah, I can't think of something that probably touches every fabric of society. I think they pester us all, and thankfully Florida lawmakers are giving consumers the ability to fight back. We're talking about Florida's newest consumer statute, at least one of the newest ones. It's a little less than a year old. We refer to it, and just for today, and if we talk about it in general, we're going to refer to it as Florida's mini TCPA. TCPA just stands for the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. That's a federal statute that was enacted to prevent basically phone calls to your cell phone using a pre-recorded voice or automated telephone dialing system without your prior express consent. The Florida mini TCPA has similar elements. There are some distinctions. The biggest thing to know is that there was a Supreme Court case in April of 2021. It was a Facebook, DeGuide v. Facebook, and the Supreme Court basically did away with a lot of the consumer-friendly case law. So the TCPA at the federal level is no longer very consumer-friendly. It's very, very robocaller friendly, but thankfully Florida lawmakers, in response to that Supreme Court case, have come out with Florida's new mini TCPA.
Absolutely. So as we break that down a little bit, let's just start on the surface. You got robocalls, you got spam texts, but there's a lot of different ones. In terms of what we're talking about today, what's covered in this, what you were just talking about, what are the specific types of robocalls and spam texts that are covered that you could potentially stop from happening?
Right. We are talking today about robocalls and spam texts from companies that are advertising or marketing a product or service to you directly. So think of, a realtor reaching out, hey, do you want to sell your home, to an investor that says, we'll give you a cash offer, to somebody saying, buy this product, somebody saying, buy this service. Those are the types of things we're talking about. The Florida mini TCPA does not have similar protections as the federal one in terms of debt collectors. So under the federal one, you could go after a debt collector if you told the debt collector to stop calling you and they continued to call you. So we're not talking about that today. And we're not talking about, the one that's going to make you rich if you send them $10,000, or the kid calling, from his parents' basement halfway across the world. We're only talking about viable companies that we can identify, because under this statute, the company and the caller is required to identify themselves. So anybody marketing or soliciting goods or services, products, or anything to you, that's who we're referring to when we talk about mini TCPA today and how you can fight back against them. As for the other companies, right, the spammers and the kid calling from his mom's basement and some of them, contact the FTC. Give them the number. The more complaints they get, the more the FTC investigates, and they'll actually go after some of these spammers and scammers and all of these companies, shut them down. And they will contact, a lot of times, these cell phone providers and say, hey, you better stop these calls from going through or we'll fine you. Things like that.
I got you. So just to confirm, you said a little bit, if somebody says I should give them my bank account information and they'll make me rich, I should not do that.
Definitely not. Okay, no sensitive information. Never, ever give anything like that over the phone.
Yeah, just to confirm, I figured but you might not know. Don't give your bank account information out. All right, let's talk about this law in specifically. Tell me a little bit. You told me that you have to be told in writing that these people can contact you. Kind of break that down. What are they really doing that they're not allowed to do?
So the called party, or the consumer that's receiving these robocalls or spam texts, and we'll talk about further damages later, but could be entitled to $500 per call. Oh. We're not talking about anyone other than Florida residents, by the way. So if you have a 904 number, or if you're new to the area and you don't have a 904 number yet, but you're a resident of the state of Florida and you're receiving robocalls or spam texts, you would apply, right? Because you're in, you're governed under this Florida statute.
Just to confirm, like you say 904 because that's the Jacksonville area code, but like 941 in Palmetto.
Sure.
Any Florida, it doesn't have to be 904, just to confirm.
Yeah, I was
here's an example.
I was more saying for our listeners here locally, but yeah, anybody that sees this from the Keys to the Panhandle to Tampa to Miami and anywhere in between with, that resides in Florida would be protected by this state law.
Perfect. Just wanted to clear that up. And then as you were saying, so if you have the Florida number, then what? What happens?
So if you have that Florida number, anybody that is making solicitation calls to you, right, and they're trying to sell a good or service, they have to have your prior express written consent. And that simply means at some point before you received that call, you told them that they could make or place that call to your cell phone. And we're going to talk a little bit about what type of call cannot be made, right? Like there are automated telephone dialing system calls that can't be made without prior express written consent. There are pre-recorded texts and voicemails and those types of calls that would be prohibited without prior express written consent. But the biggest thing to know is, hey, look, if you never signed up to receive a mortgage quote or a landscaping quote or name it, this individual likely doesn't have your prior express written consent to be communicating with you, right?
Yeah, and you say likely. So the question that I guess I would have is there a way that they can get that without us like knowing we're doing it? Like, or do you have to go out of your way to like, okay, yes, contact me?
And I don't think so. Primarily, based off of the language, and there's not enough case law to tell, but you don't need to tell them to stop calling. If they never received your, prior express written consent to begin with, you don't need to tell them. And the common one that you see is, let's say you get a new phone number, somebody else had reached out about something. If they're now contacting you and harassing you about somebody else's, whatever they had signed up for,
right,
they're now going to be on the hook because they've got to keep their internal do not call list and all of that up to date as well. They're required to do that under federal law. So if their internal do not call list isn't up to date and they're calling, third parties that haven't given prior express written consent, that's also going to be a problem for them as well.
When you talk about the type of calls, you said it there a little bit, but let's go into that a little bit right now. The type of calls that if somebody, like people get a lot of spam calls, right? So which ones actually fall under this? Like if someone picks up the phone right now or gets a voicemail, it's a spam call, what should they be looking for to maybe fit into this new thing that's going on in Florida?
To prove that you have a claim under this mini TCPA, you'd want to, screenshot, right? That's a great way to do it. You can request your records, right? So a company like Metro PCS, I think they keep your call records for around a year. A company like Verizon, I think, keeps your call records for up to 2 years. So if you knew what phone number they were calling from and you could pull the phone log, that's great. If a lot of times if you have one of those third-party call blocking systems, you can pull your log from there. Mm-hmm. So you may be getting calls and not even know about it, right? Because your call blocking company may ring a couple times to your phone. By the time you look down, they say, okay, you didn't give your consent, send it over. Those would all potentially qualify. So what you'd want to do is you always want, if somebody sent you a text message, who are you? What company are you calling from? What are you trying to sell? I mean, why are you communicating with a consumer as the caller if you never had permission to do so?
Yeah. And from that, the calls that you get would have to be someone trying to sell something? Is that how that would work?
Somebody advertising something or soliciting something.
I gotcha. Okay. So that's kind of the start of it on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk, protecting military families with Chris Brochu. Chris, obviously with these calls, there's more than just that. You told me that there's times and amount of calls you can get per day to qualify. Just kind of expand on that a little bit. What window, if you're getting these calls, should be red flag?
So we always say red flag, red flag, red flag.
We do.
If you get one call, right, without your prior express written consent, that may be enough to prove if you have the facts to back it up. If you are receiving more than 3 calls, even with your prior express written consent, this may still fall into that area of a violation. And again, the more egregious, the more money this company will pay. They could be on the hook for treble damages, meaning if they are calling you day after day after day, trying to solicit or advertise something to you, and you tell them, hey, look, stop calling me. Like, I've got a company right now, I'm not kidding you, calls me every single day. I've told them via email, I've told them on the phone, please stop calling me. Please put me, I've done these cases, I've litigated several of these cases. I know exactly what they're doing, and they probably don't realize it, or maybe they do, but I've told them, put me on your internal do not call list, stop calling me. They still call me, right? I don't have any clue why, right? I never talked to them. They found me somewhere online, right? Found me in some attorney database. I don't know that whatever they're soliciting me is for attorneys. Mm-hmm. They don't have my permission to do it. But so what you do is you just basically keep track of it, right? You keep a call log. They called me on this phone number. It was this company. Here was the person that was calling. Here was the time. Here was the date. And if they left you a message, a lot of times the pre-recorded ones, they might change Casey, Justin, Chris, Mike, Tim, right? But the information is identical. So what they're doing on their end is they've got a database of numbers and they click send and it spam text the same or pre-recorded call, voicemail, whatever it is, to 10,000 people at one time. There's no, you can read any of these pre-recorded texts or voicemails and know almost immediately whether or not it is directed at you or if it's just, blasted to everybody.
Yeah. So in terms of your situation, that's got to be poor decision making, right, by the company to call an attorney over and over?
I would think it would be. Maybe they don't think of it that way, but yeah, I don't. And the hard part is that you've got to pick and choose your battles. And that's why I was saying earlier, if you've got a company that's not viable, report them to the FTC. If you've got somebody that you can't collect from, right? You've got somebody that if you sued them and won a judgment, or you sued them and got an award from them and you'd never be able to collect a dime from it, report them to the FTC, make it their battle. But if it's a company that probably has insurance to back this up, probably does this every day to consumers, right? Harasses them, fight back. That's the only way to get this to stop is to either report it to the FTC or to fight back. Otherwise, you're just, kind of spinning your wheels. And I report them. My number's on the internal do not call list at a lot of places. I report them to the FTC. I try to do my best, but it's not 100%.
Yeah.
So
I think that's interesting that you say that, because I think most people, when they get spam texts or spam calls like I do, I straight up just hit block and move on with my day. Is it more productive to not block them and wait for them to leave you a voicemail and then report them? Is that what people should be doing instead of blocking?
Well, you can still block them and still, receive 500 a call because they're technically still ringing to your phone. Sure. But and again, maybe that will differ from, a TCPA scenario. But as long as you're receiving that call, that communication, and it's disrupting your day, even if it's simply an annoyance, then you may be eligible for 500 a call. The other part of it too is that if you can prove that this company had knowledge that you told them to stop, or maybe they're really harassing you, right? They're calling you 5-6 times a day, maybe more than 3. I don't know what number. I don't think we have any cases on that, but you could get treble damages, $1,500 a call, right? After that point where the court believes, okay, yep, this is the threshold. Once they've made every call from this point forward, this person's entitled to $1,500 a call. Again, we'll go off the federal statute, the TCPA. That happened, right? That there were a lot of cases where, oh, this consumer told you on this date to stop calling. Any call made after that date's, worth $1,500. And you wouldn't believe the amount of companies. It was TCPA before this DeGuide decision at one point in time was the most litigated case in federal court across the country. I think it was around 2,000 filings a year. Because at some point, these companies are just willing to, hey, we'll just risk it all. And then if we get caught doing something that's not allowed, we'll just pay the fine and move on. And, that's what we're trying to prevent, right? Just don't do it. Do it the lawful way. Get their consent and,
do it from there. Absolutely.
Right.
You mentioned it there. I'm sure people heard it. Potentially up to $500 a call people could be getting for these robocalls. Chris,
Sure.
How do they get their money?
Sure. So what you would do is you basically would keep track of your call log. If you have one of those call blocking apps, there are several out there. You can pull your log, right? And you can see, okay, this 800 number was calling me. Here are the dates, right? Or you can keep track on your own, right? In an Excel spreadsheet. You can take screenshots. So you could take screenshots of all of them. That's how I've seen them. But yeah, I mean, there are several consumers that I know that have gotten healthy 5-figure and a couple 6-figure awards from getting unlawful phone calls. And I mean, a lot of times these aren't class actions, so they're individual cases. I mean, if it's a class action, you could get even more. I mean, there are some right now you could look up that are closing in on 9 figures. I think one of the biggest ones that a bank got hit with was like 75 million, maybe more. And the other, to kind of get back to the damages portion, the other part of the Florida mini TCPA that's good is that, again, we don't charge anything up front to litigate these. Client may be entitled to $500 per call if we can prove it was egregious, $1,500 a call. And, the offending party, the calling party, may be on the hook for our attorney's fees and costs as well.
Wow. That is crazy. The amount of money that you could be entitled to. And honestly, it feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, feels like a pretty easy thing to find out, right? You just kind of do a little bit of research on your phone, listen to these voicemails you're getting, and then maybe contact you, or is it not that easy?
I think that if you like the investigation side, because a lot of times you got to dig around, right? You've got to figure out who the called party is, or excuse me, not the called party, who the caller is. And, a lot of times they'll hide the ball. Maybe they aren't going to be completely candid with you. So you've got to do some digging, figure out who they are, why they're calling, what company they're calling from. And then, yeah, as long as you can offer proof in one of the ways that we talked about, right? Your own call log or a third-party call log, or maybe your cell phone company provider call log. You can try to use those to fight back. And you wouldn't believe, I mean, even when you've got a company dead to rights, they'll still fight it. I mean, they're still going to defend it. They're still going to, try to get it thrown out of court. And, that's their right. That's, everybody in this country has a right to due process. And so they're not just going to roll over and give you, 500 times 100 calls, but
it's possible.
They may be on the hook for that if they take it all the way to trial. So
interesting. It's definitely an interesting thing because we all know about the robocalls and the spam text. So the idea that you could potentially be compensated or get money for it if they're doing it unlawfully is definitely an interesting thing that we will continue to dive into